today's guest is our friend, California attorney Demetria Graves. She's also the host of the Legally Uncensored podcast, and we've collaborated a couple times before. And we set this up a while ago because we were like, what can we talk about in November? Holidays. Let's talk about narcissists and holidays. Let me see if Demetria is here. I, of course, knew that this interview was coming up for months and got up in the middle of the night at 4:20 exactly and came up with all kinds of ideas of things that I wanted to ask if she saw in terms of narcissistic behavior, both in Hooverville. That's a good one. Both, and you know what? I'm going to write that one down. That's a good one. I didn't have that one on my list. But in terms of how they behave legally and then how they behave personally, what they do to make things harder. Where is Demetria? Let me check one more time. I just told her I was turning the camera on, but I don't see her. Oh no. All right, I might have to check for a minute. But anyway, so as an attorney, she sees things all the time. As a high conflict divorce coach, we see things all the time. Oh, there she is. All right, good. All right, Demetria, I see you have this conversation because, like I just mentioned, I brainstormed a whole bunch of things in the middle of the night that I want to talk about, and I want to compare notes with you.
Good morning.
Oh, good afternoon.
Oh, it's still morning for me.
Yeah, I know. Good. That's good. That's good. So Demetria, we thought about doing this topic a while ago, but we didn't go into like, are we going to talk about narcissists and holidays from a legal perspective? Because I have legal stuff I want to talk to you about.
Right.
You know, common questions that come up with our clients. But then I thought it might be fun to just mention some things that I've seen in personal holiday experiences and see if you or your clients have had this in common. If this is a common thing or if this is just a me thing.
Right. I would love to speak about whatever you want to talk about, but I know the holidays get very, very challenging just for the average person. If you add conflict, if you add narcissism, if you add whatever the issue is on top of that, it can be even more stressful. So I just wanted to come on, answer questions, give your viewers, mine or whoever, some relief to know that they're not alone. So I'm
great.
an open
Okay,
book
before you start, Demetria, say who you are just in case people don't know, even though we've done this before.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. I am Demetria Graves. I am a certified family law specialist in California, and I exclusively handle divorce cases. And recently, I've been doing a lot of cases with high conflict, which typically includes narcissism or some other challenges that the parties face.
Yes, so you really know, and you're one of the unicorn attorneys, because so many people say, I need to find an attorney who gets it. And we're like, well, you don't need to, but if you do, that's amazing.
Right.
Because most attorneys don't deal very often with these crazy cases.
Right. Or they do, but they don't understand the intricate details of what goes into it and then how to handle it. So sometimes it gets more out of hand because people are fueling the fire rather than trying to understand what's going on. But you're right. If you can get someone that understands, the better. But it doesn't always happen like that, as we know.
Yeah. All right. So right now we have you as an expert. Before I get into my little brainstorm at 4 a.m. details of what I came up with, why don't you tell me a couple of things that you see that commonly happen with your people around the holidays that drive them insane? More insane than the usual survival mode.
I think the number one thing is, especially with newly divorced couples, if one of the partners introduces the kids to a new significant other on Christmas morning, or if or if one of the parties don't honor the agreement, do not return the children when they should, do not drop off when they should, keeping longer than normal, with the excuse, oh, grandma's here or auntie is here or whatever it is, or not being reasonable. If you have, especially with young kids, if you have kids under 5 that, Christmas is new to everyone, both parties want to spend Christmas and or Christmas Eve or whatever their traditional holiday is for them. And even if you have a court order, couples not being reasonable, and preventing the other parent from having holiday time. So the list continues, but those tend to be the bigger ones.
Okay, let's go back to Christmas morning introducing a new partner.
Mhm.
Tell us,
Yeah.
that happens commonly. I mean, we hear it a lot. I haven't heard it as that special time of year, though.
Yes, that happens. And you can imagine my email like, oh my God, our kids are still accepting that we're not together. Now it's this other person. Now it's on this special day. And so it becomes a disaster. So, yes, that happens. And I don't know what the psychology is behind that. Maybe, everyone is happy in a good mood. It's the time to bring out the new
I don't
person.
think so. I don't think so.
I totally disagree.
Yeah.
You want kids to have great memories of your holiday celebrations, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day, New Year's Eve. Those are not the times to introduce new people.
Okay, so I'm gonna invite you to give the not the New York reality check, the harsh one, but the harsh California one. So let's just say this happened to me, my ex did it, and I call you and I say, let's file a motion.
No.
What is a judge gonna do?
I'm going to say, well, one, I'm probably not going to respond to you on Christmas. However, when I do respond, let's calm down. The court's probably not going to do much about
Right.
that. We should have a conversation about boundaries and where our kids are and what's happening. But the likelihood, I mean, the damage is done, right? Once they've been introduced, what can a court really do? I know there are some couples that put into their agreements that they will not introduce significant others until there's a meeting, until, the therapist says it's okay, whatever it is. But the court is not really going to do much about that because the court can't stop anyone from meeting anyone new. Of course, unless there's abuse or some random situation. But a court's not really going to say, you can't have your kids around someone else. The court might feel like, why are you doing this? But there's not a court order that's really going to stop that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to emphasize things like
Right.
that because people seem to think that family court is the place where people get punished.
No.
And so certain orders will be written with language in there, like what you just mentioned, including the line like, neither party shall disparage the other parent to the other
Right.
parent. And then they do it.
Right.
And then people say, I'm going to go to court and the judge is going to punish. And I say, well, what do you think the judge can do? Do you think they're going to take the parental rights away? Because probably that's not going to happen.
Right.
So people are left with this, well, but I thought it was the law. Like our agreement says that. Do you see that a lot where it's like, but it says in our agreement, like right of first refusal. Why can't I go file a motion and get that other person in trouble?
I say it takes several times. So you might go in once and the court says, oh, well, don't do it again. You might go in a second time. The court says, oh, well, don't do it again. Might go third, fourth, fifth, sixth time before the court does something, if they do something. So I say all the time, courts have especially in California and in New York and the big cities, courts have so many cases on their calendar, right? So the little things sometimes get overlooked. I'm not saying it's right, it's just what happens. So I always say keep a journal of what's happening. Now, if you have a string of 10 to 15 things that are happening, that might raise an eyebrow, but don't get excited about it. But the more that you have, the better it will be if you decide to go back. Now,
Right. But it usually
one
has
or
to be
two
something
times.
egregious.
Right. Right. Or something that's consistently done over and over and over. 15, 10, 15, 20, depends on the judge. But not the first time, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think people need to understand, like, when they talk to someone like you or like me or someone who kind of understands a little more about the system, it's not that anyone's trying to minimize your experience and your pain.
Right.
It's just to try to clarify, like, this is horrible, but court is not the place for you to have validation and justice. This is other issues, like Demetria said, like boundaries or support, or there's things we could do with communication, but sometimes we're just stuck with their crappy behavior and picking up the pieces with our kids.
Right. Well, I say say divorce court is a business, right? You're suing the other party for something. So it's very businesslike. It's not, woe is me, let's sit down and listen to my story. That is not it. It is very businesslike. I try to encourage my clients to have that attitude from the onset of the case. It makes it so much easier. And to go to other outlets to express how you feel, what you're going through, your emotions, that is not family court.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to keep saying it over and over and over because I think movies,
Yep.
pop culture
Hmm.
make it feel like, yes, I'm going for justice and it's going to happen that day. No,
No,
we
absolutely
know.
not. I wish, but no.
Yeah. So, what are some other things you see with how narcissists or abusive people, how do they legally weaponize parenting schedules to make things difficult? And are there things, I always ask compound questions, are there things that you should know when you're making a parenting plan with holidays to think about specifically so that they won't be ruined?
Be very, very specific down to the hour and the minute that you're going to pick up, to the location you're going to pick up. It might be an alternate location. If the first location is unavailable, the more specifics you have, the better. And there's less room for gray areas, less room for negotiation, if you will. So the more that you have in the order, the better. And so, to answer your first question, a lot of people use that gray area to get over on the other parent. So, if it says, okay, we're going to meet and confer to the time that we're going to exchange on Christmas Eve and the location, then they might not call you until 10 o'clock at night on Christmas Eve and have you drive an hour away to wherever they are. So the more specific they didn't do anything wrong, they're quote unquote following the order, but they're using the gray area to their advantage. So the more that you have, the better.
Yeah, we talk about those loopholes and to try to keep out the word, unless it benefits our people, the word reasonable.
Right, right. Because it's not
That word.
reasonable.
Yeah. No, because that person's like, well, I think it's reasonable and it's
Right.
unreasonable, but who's to decide?
Right. Yeah, that only works for parties that are somewhat amicable, but it does not work if you don't have a working relationship. Then you need to have very, very detailed orders regarding your exchanges, the times, everything that you need. Travel. I've seen parties prevent the other party from traveling because it wasn't stated. And in some orders, technically you can't leave the state where your orders are issued. So please make sure that that's included as well and that you're notifying the other party where you're traveling to, the dates of travel, where you're going to be, all of that great information.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Like, this is a big problem for some of our people who are all the ones who don't have amicable
Mm,
situations. The calendar, and not just short-term plans,
right.
but like coming up, the 2024 calendar. People have in their orders that every year they have to make a new calendar. Certainly things change,
Hmm.
but this has been such an ordeal
Right.
for so many of our clients where somebody's withholding travel or
Right.
passports and they're like, well, I'm not going to give it to you until we get this other thing done.
Right.
And it's just stuck. Like, what do you think about those situations? Because days do change, kids get older, but with redoing a calendar every single year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And that's why I say when cases like these, I am very, very, very detailed. We are switching the passport. One year one party has it. One year, the other party has it. If you withhold the passport, then the party that's not withholding keeps it going forward. So there are a lot of, if this happens, then this happens in my orders because,
Consequences.
right,
We,
there
we
are
call that
consequences.
have enforcement language built in. Like if
Yes.
this, like you already anticipate,
Right,
they're not going to follow it.
right.
So what's going to trigger like the next thing that happens other than you're not allowed to, and then there's
And it
no
doesn't
con.
matter, right?
Right.
So like I said before, the more you have detailed in your order, the better. It might seem very, very strict, but I think the more strict, the better in these circumstances. If things change, if things become more amicable, then you can discuss changing the orders, because the parties can always change orders amongst themselves in writing. Just a side note, I had a client who moved away and told the court, well, we agreed that I can move away. And he asked, well, where's the evidence of that? Because now father was saying, no, I didn't agree. She left the state and she didn't have it. And so even when you're on good terms with your ex, make sure things are still in writing and clear and concise if you have to go back.
Right. And can you, I don't know if you want to get into this just briefly, but hearsay is a confusing thing for people where they'll be like, well, I wrote everything down and I brought it in and the judge wouldn't look at it.
Well, it depends. If you wrote it to the party, that's part of the action.
No. So yeah, that's what I want you to differentiate between.
If you're writing between the party, then that won't be hearsay. But if you wrote it and there's a conversation between him and his mother, or you and the mom, or you and someone else, you cannot bring that into court. It has to be between the parties only, unless you can call that party as a witness to testify to what you wrote or to what they wrote.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important. Like one thing we do with our clients is something we call strategic communication. We say, this turns hearsay into evidence because it's a dialogue between the two of you.
Right.
It's not just you taking notes by yourself in your journal, which it shouldn't be minimized, but sometimes how does anybody know if that's true? But when it's a conversation, it's like, well, you both participated in it and it's documented.
Right. Documentation and journals are important. Journals in terms of this happened this date. So you have the dates. You can turn dates into a declaration fairly easy. But if you don't have that information and you kind of forget, then that's when the challenges arise.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm thinking about, like, I'm not sure if you want to say more about like legal stuff from what you see as a lawyer with more holiday issues, and then I have my little list of just general behaviors.
I mean, from the legal perspective, it's pretty cut and dry for us, right? There is an order. Follow the order. There won't be much that we can do during Thanksgiving and or the Christmas break if the orders aren't followed. Making sure that your orders are extremely detailed if you know that you have a complicated other party. That's really all we can do legally. Where I get concerned is once the holiday arises and what's happening for your children. Because I always say children are always the forgotten parties of a divorce, right? So this has happened. You still want to create great memories. So, how are we making sure that both children maximize their time with both parents for the holidays? And we're having smooth transitions to do that. That's where the problems arise.
Yeah, now you had said follow the order. So let me bring up something that comes up a lot where I'm like, let's have you tell them too, not just us. If somebody has an order and their difficult ex is pressuring them, like, but just this one time, and this is happening, and then it becomes a pattern, and they say, okay, so both of us haven't been following the order. How can it harm you if you yourself are not following the order because you're coerced or pressured not to by your ex?
It really depends on the court and the circumstances. Again, these things should be in writing. Hey, it's 2023. This is my year to have Thanksgiving. You said grandma's coming from Italy. So I'm going to allow you to have it, but this does not change what we do in the future. I'm just being reasonable. I want our kids to see grandma from Italy. I will allow it.
Okay, let's change it to a restraining order.
If there's a restraining order, I don't advise changing restraining order terms.
No, I'm not talking about changing. Like, let's say I have a restraining order against my ex. I don't, but let's just say I did. And then my ex is saying, oh, but it's the holidays. It's okay to get together. Okay, now how can that harm me if I say, all right, I won't follow the restraining order this one time?
For one, if you have a restraining order, to me, that's a different class of danger and harm. Do not change the terms of restraining order. Do not go back on that. That's just a hard no. I don't feel comfortable. I appreciate you wanting to do this, but no. I don't.
I'm thinking,
restraining order.
Yeah, if you break the restraining order that's meant to protect you, couldn't your ex go to court and say, well, she's not really that afraid of me because look how many times she let me be around her, and then your own credibility could be harmed, right?
Right, because sometimes that is a trap, right? So if you start violating your own order and going around them, going around their family, whatever it is, then that kind of diminishes your credibility. So in restraining order circumstances, to me that's a no.
Yeah. So never.
No,
Yeah.
not in restraining order cases. And
Yeah.
especially now that we're seeing so many restraining orders violated and people losing their lives, even with restraining orders, I think it's way too dangerous to make exceptions in those scenarios.
Yeah. So I hope people are really paying attention to that because we have had clients who break their own restraining orders and they're like, well, I thought it would be okay this time.
It is not okay. No, not in these days. It's too unstable and we don't know. It could work out, but why take that chance?
Right. Right. For sure. Okay. So now I'm going to get to my list, my 4 a.m. list that I was like, oh, I want to see.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see if this is, again, if this is just me or some of our clients, or if you see this commonly. So we've noticed something called married single mamas, where when somebody is with the other person, and I shouldn't just say mamas. Let me take that back because we don't want to turn into a gender thing.
Okay.
And I would say there's the male half of been there, got out, even though it tends to be a little more common. One parent, when you're together, does the primary caretaking of the children. And we have seen that around holidays, when I'll give a specific situation. In my situation, around a holiday, I usually got the kids ready for the event, like got them dressed nicely to go to like a family party. And I was busy, and my ex is like, I don't know if it was deliberate, but incapable, and the kids would show up completely like a sloppy mess.
Yep.
Is that behavior that you see? It's almost like they're doing it on purpose. Like where and then my family comes up to me and goes, why do your kids look so awful? Like, how could you let them out of the house? And I was like, but I wasn't home. Like the one time I wasn't. That's something you see that toxic people tend to do when they are responsible and they deliberately are just neglectful.
Oh, absolutely.
Sending the kids in really messy stuff.
Right, especially if they know you're far away from home, there might not be much that you can do about it. It's drama. It's a way to put attention on them as well. However, I would say to that party, bring a change of clothes. Bring what you need to make sure your kids are dressed when you do see them or whatever the situation may be. Get ahead of the situation. You know that they're going to bring them. Hair might not be combed, clothes might be dirty. You bring the things to make sure their hair gets combed, they have a nice change of clothes, and go on about your day.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I had a feeling it wasn't
No,
just my particular situation. Okay,
it's not just you.
another thing around travel. They are taking the kids out of the country and they don't double check the paperwork, and then they get to the airport and they realize they didn't take the right passports, and then you get called and you have to go racing to fix things. How common do you see like this sort of I call it like weaponized stupidity, where they're like, oh, I didn't know, now you need to fix it, almost like the ex is still the parent in the relationship to them.
Right.
Do you see that a lot, where you're like, you do things, and you're the one still scrambling and trying to fix things like a superhero?
Right. I've seen that, but more or less, oh, the parties might live an hour away. Such and such forgot their iPad or their Nintendo Switch or whatever stuffy they need. And then you look like the unreasonable person if you're not home. And you're like, I'm sorry, I'm not home. And then it becomes, oh, kids, dad won't bring the Nintendo Switch or mom won't bring your iPad. And we know how attached our kids are to the devices. So I've seen that a lot. But it's okay to say, you know what, I really want to do it. I really want you, or I really want to bring our kids, but I'm not home. I'll do it at this point, or you can pick it up at this time. But the more you give into that, the more it's going to happen. The more you create a boundary and say, I'm so sorry this happened, but this is how we're going to resolve it, then that becomes the norm.
Yeah, and that is so important because by you swooping in, you're enabling and
Or putting on your
encouraging
cape.
that behavior.
Yep. I tell my clients all the time, put away the cape.
Yeah,
You've done you've done your work, okay? You can put away your mom cape, your dad cape, and you have to set some boundaries here, or that will always happen and they will always think that you're going to come to the rescue.
for sure. Okay, another thing. It's holiday time.
Mm-hmm.
It's your time with the kids, but now the kids are sick. And the kids always
Mm.
seem to get sick right before either you take them on vacation or it's some
Right.
big event with your family. Do you see that?
Yes, but most times, unless your kid is in the hospital with IVs, the court's going to say the other parent can take care of a sick child. That is not enough to keep them, unless you all decide, hey, I don't want the kid to be transported back and forth when they're in this condition. For instance, right now, my son has some stomach virus or whatever, but he's able to walk and talk and fine. If there needed to be an exchange, he can get up and walk and get in the car and, you know, go. So as long as your kids can be exchanged and they're not in the hospital and it's some extreme illness, exchange the kids. Being sick is just not enough.
Okay, so here's another one that's in the same vein. So let's say it's my access time. I have the kids,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not my ex is supposed to have the free time. But I'm like, you know what? The kids are sick, so I need to drop them back off with you because I can't deal with that. And
If
then,
you have that type, go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, so often our clients are the one on the other side where they're like, my ex is supposed to have the kids, but they're saying the kids are sick, so they're going to bring them back with me because they don't want to deal with it. And
Back to our
I
boundaries.
feel guilty if I don't take them back because they're sick.
They can take care of them. They're capable. They have the
Right?
medicine. I know you exchange the medicine and the remedies and everything they need to do, but that goes back to the boundary. If you always accept them back, be reasonable, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes kids might say, "Hey, I want to be with mom. I want to be with dad." And then, that's a totally different situation. But if that's not the case, that party can take care of the kids, and you don't always have to say yes, bring them back.
Yeah, a lot of people will say like I feel like I'm going to get in trouble with a judge at some point if I don't say yes, if I'm not available.
No,
That
you
seems
will
to be
not.
a big problem.
No,
Yeah, okay.
you are not. The other party during their time can take care of the kids, make sure they have the medication, your home remedies that you use, and that's that.
Yeah. So in the last question about that topic, let's say another parent is doing that often and they're saying, I can't take the kids now, the kids are sick, the kids are sick. Could that help my custody case for somebody getting less access time because they're always leaving the kids with me and they're not actually using their access time?
If there's a pattern of
Yeah, pattern.
them not using their custodial time and it's always cut short, maybe. But back to what we said, it has to be a clear pattern that they're always cutting their time short, sick or otherwise, that warrants taking away their custodial time. I don't know a lot about New York, but I know in California, they're really pushing 50-50 custody for healthy parents. So you have to show the pattern. You have to show that they're doing this time and time and time again. Then yes, that can potentially help.
Yeah. I mean, it's always about those patterns.
Right.
Long, long, well documented patterns.
Yes.
Okay, here's another one.
Okay.
So we noticed that a lot of narcissists or toxic people don't have a lot of real friends. And I did a post the other day and got all kinds of fascinating labels that they would call their ex's friends.
Uh-huh.
But for some reason, they want the kids to be almost like props during the holidays. Like they don't actually pay that much attention, but they get really upset if the kids aren't there, even when the kids are adults. So
Right.
even the ones that aren't that involved in their lives, they want the kids to be there for the holidays. Do you see stuff like that?
Oh, well, yeah, that goes to the image, right? And it goes back to what we talked about the new significant other and introducing the kids and throwing them in these circumstances. A lot of times that's to make them look like the model parent. They have great kids. I'm the greatest mom and our dad. So you see that a lot because it goes to image.
Yep. Okay, here's one that's not necessarily like divorce stuff, but in general,
Hmm.
triangulation. So at the holidays, around the table, lots of talking with somebody, and then the person leaves the room and it's just bashing, 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 and in front of the kids, where the kids get confused, like, but I thought you like this person or you don't. How do you handle it? I don't know if you can. I mean, I don't even know what the answer is to this.
Right.
How do you deal
I don't.
with your kids who come back and are like, why does the other parent say all these terrible things about other people in front of us and then acts really duplicitous?
Sometimes as parents, unfortunately, we have to put on our stonewall face and say, you know what, why people do some of the things they do in life, we might not ever understand. But it happens, and there's not much we can do about it. I'm not really sure why that parent did what they did, but that's not how we operate here in our home. This is what we do. It's kind of a teachable moment, but there's not much you can do to fix the other party's behavior.
Yeah, and I like how you really emphasize the point, like there's nothing to say about the other person as
Mm-mm.
a parent, as a person. And I think confusion, like that's the best way. There's no judgment. It's just like, I don't know.
Right.
So you want to stay neutral.
Absolutely. Don't start bashing that parent, because then you might further confuse your children. But I don't know. I don't have the answer for that. However, how we do in our home is this, and that. Or how do you feel about that? Or how would you do that different? Kind of turn that into a teachable moment for your children, and then set the stage for how you want them to show up in your home.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and then my last little thing on the list, because I crossed off a couple of things, I'm like, no, that's when people are still together,
Mhm.
was a lot of people with issues tend to get very drunk in front of the kids, and sometimes they'll start future faking. They'll start making all kinds of promises,
Mhm.
which of course never happen, but I imagine that it's similar to what you just said. Why did that person say all those things? But also, besides that, how do you deal with when people get drunk or are using drugs in front of the kids and the kids come back and report it to you, but you weren't there?
Well, that's around the holidays. That is common that some people may drink more than they typically do. However, this goes back to our orders that we talked about. If you know the other party tends to drink more than they should and make more promises than they should, you can request that there's no drinking during the custodial time with either party, and no drinking 24 hours ahead of time. That way they are sober while they have the children. You can't stop them when they don't have the children, but when the children are in their care, that is something to consider. However, if that is not in order and that is happening, goes back to what we said. We cannot control what other people do. We can only control our responses and how we present to our children what's happening. We do not have the answer to why some people do as they do. Without judgment, kind of explain that and how you want your children to show up in the world.
Okay, that made me think of two other things. One of our clients recently was saying, I am hiring a private investigator because I know I can catch my ex drinking. And they did, and I have all this evidence. And I said, but was your child with them? No. But the judge is going to see that there's this pattern here of this person drinking all the time and sometimes driving. And I was just like, but that's not related to custody. Was I right to say that? Like, it doesn't
You
sound
are
like that's
right.
because you didn't have the kids.
Right.
It's like on their private time.
Right. What they do in their private time, we cannot tell adults how to behave and how to show up in the world and what they can and cannot do. However, if your children are in the car and they're drinking and driving, that's another thing. If you have an order that there's no drinking or drug use, which sometimes does include marijuana, and that's happening, that's a different story. But what they do in their private time is their private time. I have a case right now. My client got a DUI, and the court was like, "Well, were the kids with him?" No. Okay, well, he has to deal with the consequences of that, but the children weren't impacted by that because they weren't there.
Yep. Okay,
And I
and
know
then
it sounds extreme sometimes, right? Because it's like, wait, but you're getting DUIs. There could be an issue. Like, if that becomes a pattern and you're getting a DUI once a month, then the court might make some more stronger orders to protect the children, but that does not mean that you lose custody.
yeah, I think people get and it's hard to make sense of because it's like, why do I have to wait for something terrible to happen?
Mm-hmm.
But we've heard the courts can't operate on the what if
No,
because it hasn't
they won't.
happened, right?
Courts are very reactive, and that frustrates my clients. And it frustrates me sometimes. Like, wait a minute, there's this drug use, they have a pill addiction, or they have, problems with alcohol. But the court's like, well, show me the link between those issues and their ability to parent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's frustrating, I admit, but everyone needs to know that the court is more reactive than preventative.
Yeah, I mean, and it is harsh, but it is what it is, and that should help you start putting your evidence together instead of, like we say, barking up a wrong tree, because
Right.
you're just gonna spin your wheels and get nowhere.
Nowhere. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, and then the other thing I was thinking about with the holidays are there's so many situations where kids don't talk to one parent or they don't want to see one parent anymore. And there's not just issues with that parent, it's that parent's whole family. What have you seen regarding grandparents' rights? We have grandparents get in touch a lot of the time and they're like, my daughter-in-law or my son-in-law has been keeping the kids and they don't see my son, but don't I have rights to still see my grandchildren?
Well, the right to parent is one of the most fundamental rights that we have. And outside of a death of a parent or something like that, if parents are adamant that they don't want you to see the children, it is really hard to have a court overturn that decision unless there's a showing that you were consistent in their life, you were seeing them, every other weekend. Outside of that, it is really hard for a court to say, I'm going to overstep what the parent said and grant you rights. I have seen more grandparent rights if someone dies, or, like, let's say their son dies and they want to kind of step in the shoes of their son and see the children. But even that is very limited. And the courts really don't like to step on the toes of parents. But
All right. Well,
to your point, I will say too, kids sometimes don't want to go with the other parent, even if it's their time. And I say, especially when kids start getting 14, 15, 16, good luck making a teenager go and spend time with a parent, friend, whoever that they don't want to spend time with. So be mindful of that. Um, Try to understand that they're teenagers and they're going through whatever they're going through, but forcing a kid to do that might be worse than just letting them stay where they are.
yeah, and it's such a hot button topic.
Yes,
And
it is.
not something to even start a conversation on now because that'll be here for a long time.
Whole nother discussion.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so that's the end of my list. Other than to ask, is there anything else that you would recommend people do to protect themselves around the holidays from not being driven crazy?
Well, as we talked about, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. But more importantly, be mindful that it's the holidays. Your children are dealing with how to show up in different households. A lot of times it's new for them because the breakup is new or the separation is new. And be reasonable as well. Your kids love the both of you for the most part. They want to spend time with the both of you. And you both now have an opportunity to create great new traditions for your children. And at the end of the day, we just want them to be happy.
I know, I know. And all the drama makes it hard. And, our
Mm-hmm.
people, especially after a recent divorce, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
for ours, it's taken years sometimes, and all the post judgment, it's hard to remember that they are separate from us and our drama is not always theirs. It feels like we're all in it together, but sometimes we have to just
And do
try to.
things we don't might want to do sometimes for our children, but we're trying to keep them as healthy as possible, especially around the holidays.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Demetria.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
sure
you.
We'll do this again, and happy holidays
Happy
coming up.
holidays, right?
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Talk to you
Okay,
later.
bye.
Bye.